And I've been reading your
book.
Thanks
for having me, Judge.
I have to tell you, it's a fascinating book. And, you know, the way it reads is frightening. I mean, what I said earlier is the case. I mean, it's one thing to have one government after you, but to have three governments after you. When you're an energy policy advisor, you work for the Hudson Institute. It was a think tank. You know, you're a young guy and you're volunteering. And all of a sudden, you're in the middle of this mess. How were all these countries interested in you, and why?
Yeah, that's a great point that you made. This wasn't just a domestic abuse of surveillance. It was a global effort to essentially take President Trump down. And that's exactly what this was. We have to remember in 2016, most governments in Europe were socialists. These countries were basically colluding with the Obama administration to either spy actively on the Trump campaign or to set various traps. And that's why the genesis of this investigation, in many ways, it's going to be easier to understand because most of it emanated from Europe, but also it might be a little difficult because many of these foreign governments don't want to be embarrassed by the president right now.
Well, but how do you know that to be the case?
Well, because there are a lot of front-page headlines going on in Italy right now that most American reporters, maybe willfully or not, looking into, where they're basically examining some of these key characters involved in my story. For example, Joseph Mifsud, who was this infamous professor who one day unsolicited told me that the Russians had Hillary Clinton's emails, and then all of a sudden there was this cascading effect where I had members of the CIA, the DIA, Australians, and the British basically spying on me in London. And, you know, it's not being reported here. And like you said at the beginning of this segment, the old narrative is about to be upended.
Well, but the interesting thing is when they told you the Russians had Hillary Clinton's emails, or this Joseph Mifsud, or whatever his name is, who was supposed to be a Russian agent, but in truth he wasn't, correct?
That's the most interesting and disturbing part of the new story that's going to be coming out over the next months, I believe. In Italy right now, they're openly reporting that Joseph Mifsud was an Italian agent who was essentially spying on me and working me in many ways, and possibly being run by the CIA. You're starting to see a lot of reports, even in the New York Times, about CIA involvement in spying on Americans, and I think that's what it is.
You know, I think that the next question is, did you ever give that information that the Russians had Hillary's emails to the president?
Look, I used to work, like you said, at the Hudson Institute. I was in D.C. I was working with very serious people all throughout my career. You hear a lot of rumors all the time. The last thing you're going to do is go around passing rumors like that. Hillary's State Department server was openly being discussed all over the world of being potentially hacked, and that's exactly what I thought this person was talking about. Never heard the word DNC or Podesta, and the last thing I was going to do is repeat that rumor to anybody on the Trump campaign or transition team.
So you did not. The answer to the question is you did not.
Absolutely not.
Okay, and in the end, I mean, there are people who say the whole thing started at the State Department. I only have a few seconds left. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. I think all these foreign governments were being prodded by the State Department to essentially weaponize their intel agencies against us. That's why you saw many Trump associates who were abroad being spied on. And I believe, hopefully, the president did bring this up during his last visit to the UK, because the UK was heavily involved in this, and it should be called out to the light right now.
All right, George, thank you very much. It's a fascinating book. I got to tell you, you're still standing, and that's good. All right. And